Yes. Move to second, all in favor? Thank you. We're gonna go into the old business and sand and salt shed ventilation update.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a quick update on this. I've talked to both C.B. Davis up in Waterville and had them down look at the facility. They looked over the calculations I had done. They said that you're right on with the calculations. And they didn't, one of the things they did not recommend was a rooftop ventilation because of maintenance issues and stuff like that. And they also recommended, they said if you're going to do something like perhaps in Sydney where they put the ventilation fans one on either side lower than our current fan. Al A. Hudson, our engineer that we're having look at this, also did not recommend the rooftop ventilation because of the maintenance issues and a concern that it might not give you the ventilation that you need. So he's looking at, and he hasn't finalized the draft. That's why I haven't given it to you yet, but he's looking at the similar kind of recommendation that this guy does, but perhaps not moving the one fan because of the cost, but ducting it down to one side and then putting another fan on the other side. So we have to talk about that. One thing that both Jack and I, and Jack has brought it up, I'm sure I brought it up at least under discussion, and I talked a little bit to Al about it, but not a lot because he was busy. But is perhaps just opening up a sufficient opening on the other side of the door to allow for just natural ventilation as the, I don't know if that'll work, but that's a thing that we're going to investigate. I'd like to have this done so that we can get something done prior to fill time, which is going to be coming up. I think Dave would like to start filling sometime in September, near the end of September.
I'm glad we got a second opinion, and you put something else that didn't work.
Yeah, it's always good to get second opinions, I guess.
Okay, anything else on that?
No, I will try to get this resolved as soon as possible. DOT has, they said that we've never heard of a problem like this before with all of the salt sand shelters that have been built. They talked to engineers, they can't find engineers that have had this problem before. So it's unique for whatever reason it is. But we'll get it resolved.
Probably where it's located.
It could be the location, but I'll tell you, it's fluid hydraulics.
If we have the one here, you know, what if we do two here, two on the opposite side, so we,
Something.
you know,
I'm sure these guys will come up with something. All right, we're going to move right into new business and have a trust and what do we update?
Sure.
Do you want to put anything to say then for
No, actually, the only thing I would say about this is we went through the audit. I give you an update. I believe in the audit, at least for emails. We got our final audit. There was an issue which Bar Harbor Trust explained really well. The auditors said no problem, and it was kind of a legal kind of.
you told us about that.
Mm-hmm. So the auditors were fine with that, and the audit's been finalized. I'll give you hard copies soon.
Well, I'm going to turn it right over to whoever wants to speak first.
I'll start.
There we go.
Yep. So I handed this relationship summary out. Basically, I hand this out every quarter. Not much has changed. We have, since the last time we met, dispersed $14,405.33 from the Don C. Stevens Fund. All of the disbursements go directly to the town's account at Androscoggin Bank, and that's the only thing that's different on here. With that, if nobody has any questions, we'll turn it over to John and he can talk about the money.
Anybody any questions on that side? Seeing none, John, you're on.
Sounds good. What I thought I'd do is just give a brief economic update, kind of where we see things in the market at this point in time, then dive into the portfolio. We can review the asset allocation and the performance. But before we do that, just wanted to open it up for any questions that anyone might have that they'd like answered regarding the economy or the portfolio in general. If not, I'll dive in.
Go ahead, I'm gonna ask one too.
We're hearing more and more talk about trade war.
Sure.
And the economic situation, that could really last. And where are you, what is your bank, what kind of protections are your bank building into this?
Sure, so that's you know, obviously something that we're looking at, and it seems like every day now there's, you know, more and more we're getting you know, further down the trail towards a trade war, especially with China, kind of that tit for tat is going on now. At this point in time, we feel that it hasn't gone too far, and you know, we hope that cooler heads will prevail in this situation, because it doesn't make sense for China or the U.S. to get into a substantial trade war. Both countries are going to lose out. So you hope that they can come to some sort of agreement, but at the same time, you know, we're not relying solely on that. You know, we're looking at the positions that we have in the portfolio. Can they be significantly affected if there is some sort of trade war? So that's something that we take a look at and monitor on a constant basis is, are any of the holdings, could they be really negatively impacted by a trade war in general, and more specifically with China? Another thing that we have as just I would say a general risk management tactic that we use, again, is our stop loss strategy, which again is that exit strategy to get us out of the stock market should a single name in the portfolio, or if the general market starts to decline, it gets us out of the market. And really what that looks like is that if any stock falls by 25% from its most recent high point, we do an official review of the stock, and most of the times we sell, either locking in that gain or minimizing a loss. The strategy worked very well in 07 and 08. We were able to get out of the market. We didn't avoid all losses, but it was significantly less than what occurred in the stock market. So we have that general protection as well for the portfolio. So it's really, really twofold. You had a question?
Well, yeah, but you kind of answered it. I've been talking to a financial advisor, and I kind of viewed my opinion with him about we can't keep going like it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, interest is going up, the federal deficit way out of whack, and the price of gas was going up. So it's going to set us back into a recession, without a doubt. And he kind of chuckled and he says, well, that's what we're getting for information that year 2020, which is probably when it's going to happen, recession. And then maybe 5 years more down the road, probably see a depression. You have anything on that, or are you seeing the same trend? Or?
Well, I think you touched on a couple good things. I'll first start off with it's always hard making macro predictions. There are a lot of variables that go into it. You know, we do consult our crystal ball, but it never gives us an answer. So, but I would say that we agree with a lot of those. The federal deficit, blowing out the budget. Short term, that's a tailwind. Believe it or not, because extra spending, money's going into the economy, it kind of heats up the economy and is good. But you're absolutely right. Long term, you can't keep on spending more money than you have. It just doesn't. You're kicking the can down the road. I would say we're looking at probably another year to 2 years of the market kind of continuing on that upward trend. One, because of the extra spending, that's a tailwind, and number two, the corporate tax cuts. That's going to put a lot of cash back in the corporations' coffers. They're starting to increase their dividends, buy back shares. We're starting to see more mergers and acquisition activity going on in the market. So companies buying one another. So that acts as another huge tailwind for the economy as well too. So in the near term, another year or two, we think the market could continue on this kind of upward trend that we've seen for the last 8 or 9 years. But I think longer term, yeah, eventually you're going to get that pullback in the market. You're right about higher energy prices. That's negative for the economy in general, and the spending is negative as well for the long term. So
I think we're all on the same track. just gotta keep our eyes open and be ready.
Absolutely, and just to talk again to that stop loss strategy, as we see the markets become more expensive, we'll tighten up that stop loss from 25% to maybe 15% on certain names, helping to protect the portfolio more as we see it get more expensive.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a quick curious question. and that
Sure.
is that if for any reason you see indications that to pull out of the market, where you put that money? Where do you shift it to?
If we were to get out of the market, it would we would put it in cash. So it would go into the money market account, which is yielding about 1.9% right now. So a decent yield, when you compare it to other yields out there. It should be over 2% now that it should be over 2% next month that the Fed just raised rates about a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
So as the Fed raises rates, that yield will come up as well too. So you'll still be earning on a relative basis a decent yield on the portfolio.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Anybody else got any questions? Just go ahead on with whatever you wanna do.
Sounds good. Well, we took care of a majority of the economic piece right there, so we went through that. The only other thing I would touch on with the economy is just that you're right, interest rates continue to climb, and that's kind of a double-edged sword. It's nice to see that higher yield and see that increase in income, but that does mean the cost of things become more expensive, and in a rising interest rate environment, that can be negative for bonds. So it makes investing in bonds a little bit more difficult. We still want to own bonds because they have other good qualities, but what we're doing with the portfolio is weighting it towards shorter maturity bonds, because that helps protect the portfolio in a rising interest rate environment. The bonds mature sooner, and you're able to invest at higher rates. So that's how we're playing. That's how we're being defensive with our fixed income portfolio. To get into the portfolio, if we turn to page 2 with the 3 pie charts there, you'll see on the left-hand side, you'll see the overall asset allocation of the portfolio. So about 58% in stocks in the blue there, 38% in bonds, and around 4% in cash as of May 31st. It's been relatively consistent in that range for the past couple of months. Looking at the equity diversification, again, we really haven't seen too much of a change there. There are a couple names that we have added and a couple names that we have removed from the portfolio. But overall, that general allocation for the equity piece is pretty similar to when we last met, so not too many changes overall. With the fixed income, you'll see the corporate bonds there at 56%. We like to invest in individual bonds for the core of the portfolio. Again, we think that helps the portfolio because we're going to hold those bonds to maturity. And while the bond might fluctuate in price, if we hold to maturity, we're going to get par value back. So just another way we can be more defensive in a rising interest rate environment. And that corporate bond piece should continue to increase. We'll most likely take some of the proceeds from the total return bonds and keep on adding it to the corporate bonds as we find bonds we like in the market. If we turn the page to page 3, this is the equity or stock analysis. You'll see the individual stocks on the right-hand side, the largest holdings in the portfolio, the top 10 there. Just to give you a brief overview, we run, it's called an active strategy, so we're going to look different from the overall stock market. We're going to invest where we feel there's value in the market. And also, we're going to buy companies that pay a dividend. So we want to have that income stream there. We want to see the company paying an increasing dividend. We feel it's better to get that balanced return. You're going to get some price appreciation from the stock and some income. We think there's a real benefit to having that diversified return stream. On the left-hand side, you'll see how your portfolio is built to the S&P 500 based on the 11 different sectors there on the left-hand side. Your portfolio is in blue and the S&P 500 is in red. So you can see that we do look different. We're overweight in financials. We've been finding a lot of value in the financial sector. Just recently, there has been some deregulation in some of the financial banks. This should benefit some of the smaller banks, community banks, and the regional banks. Really, there was just an excessive amount of regulation, duplicated regulation that really served no purpose whatsoever. And they're removing some of that duplication now, which is beneficial. So they're not getting rid of a lot of the regulations that they put in place to help protect the economy and try to avoid the situation that occurred in 07 and 08. It's a lot of that duplication, compliance regulation that they're removing. Turning the page to page 4, we'll get into the fixed income analysis. On the left-hand side, you'll see the fixed income maturity weighting. This is basically breaking out your fixed income portfolio by maturity ranges. So for example, at the top there, you have about $90,000 worth of fixed income bonds that are going to mature in the next year, and so on and so forth as we move down. And this is just showing that that we are weighting the portfolio towards shorter maturity bonds. The majority of the portfolio is 5 years and less. If we look at the bottom in that small type there, you'll see the average maturity is 1.8 years. Just as a reference point, the index is around 5 or 6 years average maturity. So we're getting much shorter to help protect in this rising interest rate environment. And another reason we're not going out as far on the right-hand side, if you look under the treasuries column, these are the yields for government bonds. And you'll see the 1-year yield is about 2.23%. And then if we go down to the 10-year, it's 2.86%. So to go out 9 more years, you're only getting 0.63% more yield. We're just not seeing a lot of value out there. So just another reason to stay short in the portfolio. If we turn the page, we'll get into the investment performance. With the investment performance, we've broken it out into 3 different sections. Your performance is in bold, and then we put a benchmark below it as a reference point. At the top there, you'll see the performance of the total portfolio. That includes everything in the portfolio: stocks, bonds, cash, overall performance. And then we've also broken out the 2 major asset classes, both the stocks and the bonds, so you can see how they have done as well. Overall, the portfolio going back to inception, 9.2 versus 9.8, relatively in line with its stated benchmark. We like to see it relatively close to that benchmark overall. And then same thing with the 1-year number, relatively close. And then some slight underperformance year to date with a negative 0.4 versus a 0.3. Typically with our strategy, the stocks, when we have a rising market, the stock portfolio can underperform by 1% or so because we're going to be a little bit more conservative. Typically where we outperform is in a prolonged down market because of our stop loss strategy. At the bottom there with the bond performance, you can see the outperformance again is mainly due to being shorter average maturities than the benchmark. That's really benefited the portfolio, and the ability to select individual bonds in the portfolio has benefited as well. If we turn the page, we get into the holdings in the portfolio. I won't touch on any of the specific holdings unless someone has a question on one of them. There is actually one I will touch on. If we go to page 4, it's the last holding in the portfolio. This is a new addition to the portfolio that we recently added. You'll see it under preferred stock. It's called US Bancorp. It's one of our fixed income holdings, and when we find investments like this, these are the types of investments that we get excited about because we feel it offers a lot of upside and limited downside. So it's a preferred stock. It has a current yield of about, if you look all the way to the right, almost 4%, 3.9%. So you're getting 4% now, and it's a floating rate instrument. So the floor or the minimum yield is about 4%. And then if it starts floating according to a 3-month LIBOR and a specific spread, you'll start getting a higher yield off of it. So if interest rates climb, your yield's going to increase, but if interest rates decline, you're still locked in at that 4%. So when we find something like this, we feel it's a nice addition to the portfolio and helps protect you in a rising interest rate environment. So just an example of sort of the things we look for. The last page of the handout, I like this page right here because it just gives you a quick snapshot of what's occurred in the portfolio over the past 12 months. So at the top there, back in May of 17, you'll see the portfolio was valued at $1,168,000. And then you can see the different cash flows. You'll see the withdrawals of $14,500. The realized and unrealized gains, that's the growth of the portfolio if you add those two together over the past 12 months, about $56,000 worth. The income that the portfolio produced would be the interest and dividends. Add those two together, you're at about $29,000. And then if you added all four of those together, you would get your total return for the portfolio. And then at the bottom, you see the portfolio fees, and then the ending value of $1,227,000. So again, just a quick snapshot of how the portfolio performed in dollar terms over the past 12 months. Any questions on the portfolio, the economy?
Anybody have any questions you want to ask? Seeing none, thank you very much, I guess.
I have just one question, and maybe it's way too early to ask, but I'm just wondering what that would look like at the end of this year relative to what would be available for distribution next year.
So you're saying kind of what's the estimated annual income?
ER, net of whatever has to be netted out for distribution to the various entities that triggered income. What's the income for distribution?
90% of the income is distributable.
If we go to the last page of the, it should be page 4 of the holdings list. It's going to look like, we were just talking about the U.S. Bank holding. It's on that page. If you look on the right-hand side, you'll see the portfolio. This is an estimated annual income going forward for the next 12 months. Is about $33,860. So that's an estimate based on the holdings currently in the portfolio. The actual amount is going to vary a little bit from this number, but this will give you a guesstimate. So if you took 90% of that.
Well, that wouldn't all be available for distribution, would it? Is that
No, 10% of it's reinvested as principal.
how about your fees?
Our fees, and I'd have to look it up, might be, I can't remember whether they're coming from income or principal on this account.
Principal.
I
Okay,
believe it's principal, yeah.
yeah.
The other thing is, this is, you're considering this an annual thing, or is this a calendar year? Because we're working with a calendar year. So if the projected income, to answer Jack's question, that projected income could be projected based on 2018 as opposed to May of 17 to May of 18 or whatever, that would be, maybe it's the same.
Well, this will be the next, this is projecting out the next 12 months.
Right.
So if, so this is as of May 31st, 18, so this is projecting out to May 31st, 2019.
Right, but the number that we work with is, what would it be by December 31, 18?
Yeah, I could run it,
Maybe on the next report, if you just make a note that that's kind of a number, especially we'll be getting together with you again in July, late July, August. But if we could have an idea projected for December 31, 18, that would be helpful for our work this fall for budgeting.
September, I guess.
September, Have we set up a time with them so we don't get?
That's one of the things that I'm
Okay.
talking. We're gonna try to call you and set up so that each of the next quarter
Okay,
meetings, so that this past meeting was put off because of your schedule.
Mhm.
And so we're just gonna try to set it up in advance, maybe a couple meetings in advance, so we don't get to that meeting.
sure, absolutely,
So we
One of our
get
folks
an
will be in
extra,
contact.
stay with the quarters.
okay.
It's not a super big deal, but it seems like simple.
That's something we can work out.
Oh, we're gonna work out with them.
Any other questions?
So you're looking for the income based on, what would be the estimate for 2018?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Because that's what we use to put budgets together for our 2019.
Okay.
Anybody, any more questions? No, we're gonna move on. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you for having us.
Do we, still wanna wait on the?
Yes, if we could, Lynn's not here yet, we've got a number of people I know that are here, if we could move that forward, Lynn's got some personal issues he's dealing with, and I believe he's planning on being here as soon as he can get, maybe after Sunday.
You guys all set with that?
Is he away?
No,
he
he's
has
back,
family.
his sister's out, but
Okay.
he said he'd be here around 7, so.
Let's jump right into the appointments, and McGregor, Stockwell, whatever, Board of Appeals, get a call and remind him, did you do that?
Everybody call?
I didn't call, but I don't think anyone called, but we've told him to be here, but most people here know that.
Yeah.
He's a pretty good guy, he's a pretty solid guy.
He's serving for it.
And he's serving for it.
I'll make,
And they do need him on the appeals board with the upcoming.
you moved? Okay, you moved in second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Next one is Susan Littlefield.
Susan, I do not believe, did Susan turn in her, she did not turn in her, so we should have told that.
Okay, so we're gonna skip it over that one. I guess we'll go right to D, owner of the unknown property, I guess.
Yes, this is an issue I've been working on for about 7 to 8 months, maybe 9. We currently have a map lot 18, map 18, lot 2, a dark owner unknown. That's not being taxed. It's not in our tax commitment books, it's not in our rolls, there's no taxes. And I have been working fairly rigorously trying to figure out who owns that property. There are a few people that would like to buy it, but I've sent letters to Mrs. Dion. She owned, and Bartlett Estates, the heirs, they say they don't own it. We talked to a number of folks who have surveyed in that area. They thought they knew who owned it, but those are the people that we talked to. In any case, there's a way to essentially bring that back on the tax rolls. I talked to MMA about it, and I looked up the law, and I passed a lot of the information on this memo in the attached email from MMA. And what it basically is, says you have to do a diligent search, and then you have to follow a process. It'll take about a year, maybe a little bit more. And the diligent search requires an expenditure of some money for a paralegal to go in and look at the deeds and stuff. But I think it's a worthwhile thing. I just wanted to let you know and wanted to see if you have any problems with me moving forward on that. It would bring it back on the tax roll. If we sell it, I don't know what kind of income it would bring, but it's been off the tax rolls for a good 20 years plus.
What's the cost of it?
That's the question I knew you were gonna ask, and I meant to add call, and I forgot, but it's not gonna be a huge amount.
And it's offset by the cost.
It's offset by-
Hopefully, we'd be able to get it back.
Sure.
Okay. You guys all set with that?
Yep.
Yep.
It's a, no, I have it. It's about a little less than an acre, I think.
So it's a non-buildable lot.
No, it's off the back road, it's not on the shore, on the back. It's on Sandy Cove.
Yeah.
It's two-way, it's about the size of most of those lots down there. That's a
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
All right,
Sorry, we know who you are.
do you want have to take a vote on that? Yeah.
I have the right spot.
If you, I don't think we need it as long as you understand that one of these things.
Well, if it's gonna take a year, then maybe somebody new on the board when this comes back again. I
Okay.
think we ought. Do I hear a second on that?
Yes.
We moved and seconded, any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right. Next thing is a sealed bids that are due on 6/25. Denny explained that a little bit.
It's a salt bid. We have two, sometimes we go out with 3 requests for bids on salt. The DOT is one of them. The DOT went out early this year with a salt bid. They came back with a price of $56.20 a ton last year. This year it was down to $54 a ton. Last year we accepted the low bid that came through KB Cog at $55 a ton. I think KB Cog will probably get a better bid, given apparently what the DOT, because DOT is normally the higher bid. So we could either accept this at $54.20 or wait for KB Cog. That's you don't know, but you know, I'm assuming that it'll put in lower, but you don't know.
What's the time frame?
I have to let these folks know by June 29th. That's why I put it on the board. Otherwise, I'd have gone through the road committee and had a recommendation.
Do you have any idea when KB Cog's gonna have
There
it?
will be, they're gonna go out in late July, early August.
So, it's either take this one or
Wait.
hope for KB Cog to be.
We've done this in the past too, and we've gone out to the private sector on our own. You gotta get that right.
Oh. Well,
That has happened.
Just out of curiosity, does anybody know why KB Cog underbid DOT with their lower volume, KB Cog's lower volume?
Well, I believe, if I can, I believe Belgrade is in DOT's, a certain sector of the state that DOT sends out for a bid. KB Cog takes Belgrade and puts it in a different sector of the state, the northern part. Belgrade is in the southern part when DOT goes out bid. So that's the only thing I can think of is how they place in what we get for bids, so.
Is DOT throwing money away?
Well, I'm not saying it's throwing money away, it's just their bid strategy and how they divide the state.
Well, I can tell you, fuel, DOT was not always the cheapest one. You know, diesel fuel and stuff.
It just surprises me,
I
that's all.
know.
They have a big bargaining power.
They should be able to buy it a lot cheaper than anybody else, and they never do. Somebody's not doing the job. Anyway.
story there, I guess.
So, would you prefer to just pass this up?
Yes, I would,
Yeah, me too.
the rest of them.
I can't go now.
Yep.
Okay.
What would you guys like to do?
I
Take a chance on KB Cog, I would.
roll the dice.
Well, we can always try to go out and,
Sure.
sometimes you can talk to DOT too if you need to.
I'm on board, let's hang on, see what we got. I always like more than one to cut from.
That's right.
They just went out early this year for whatever reason, I don't know.
So, we're gonna jump right over that.
Lynn's here now, if you wanna go back to the.
Okay? You guys want to?
Right on the hot seat, right off the bat.
Good time.
Do you want me to?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, Lynn is a person that's helping to develop the triangle that is down in the village. He's had an architect develop plans and all that. He wanted the opportunity to kind of provide an overview, as I understand, of what they intend to do down there with the Friends of Belgrade Lake Village, and for your review and look at information.
Thank you, Dennis. Yep. Thank you for your time. Good to see all of you. We have this idea that we'd like to develop a park for Belgrade Lakes Village, so that for the use of the citizens and for visitors and friends. And we're about to get going, so I thought it was a good time to come and visit with you and share the plans that we have for it and get your input, hopefully your endorsement, and any ideas that you would have to make it better or concerns that you might have in terms of the direction we're going with this. And we're doing this in collaboration with the Friends of Belgrade Lakes Village, kind of an extension, if you will, of the street project. Phyllis and I my wife and I bought this property with the intention of making it a park, and we have since deeded it to the Friends of Belgrade Lakes Village, so it's now their property. And we have agreed as part of that transfer to fund the cost to develop the park on the property. So that's the arrangement we have in the collaboration that's going on between the two of us. Okay, that allows it to be a work under a non-profit heading and gives us some tax breaks in this endeavor. I think you all have the copies of the plans and the recap. Our intention is to do this in a way that works along some strategies or guidelines that we first talked about some time ago, which is to provide a park that's appropriate for the space, but also easy to maintain in the long run. So it's not a complicated plan. It's a relatively simple plan that involves the construction of a gazebo that's right size for the piece of property. It's about a 1 acre plot. This is the triangle piece across from the Sunset Grill, in between the Catholic Church and the Sunset Grill. That's a highly visible site and should be a good place for a park. But the gazebo would be kind of in the center. It's going to be about 20 feet in diameter, octagonal shaped gazebo. Behind the gazebo on what would be the south side will be a arched or a curved, what I call seat wall. The property slopes from the back is higher and it slopes gradually down to the front or to the north. And the seat wall would take advantage of that contour and be on the high side, it would be flush with the ground. There'll be a stone curved wall. On the low side, it'll be just the right height so you can sit on it and face the gazebo. So it'll kind of frame the gazebo. It'll provide a actual seat for people that might want to sit there if there's a performance or something going on. And it adds a nice kind of permanent architectural feature to the property to give it some character. In addition to that, there'll be a parking lot up where where the driveway enters off of West Road. There'll be a 5 space gravel parking lot so that people can use that either for the park or for additional parking. I know that's a big need in the village, so we're going to have a little parking there. There'll be a gravel path, stone dust path that'll run from that parking lot in a nice curved fashion over to Route 27 and tie into the crosswalk that the state is planning there to make your way safely across the street. And then we'll put some landscaping on the property when it's all done, probably a little grove of ornamental trees on along West Road to provide a screen, maybe crabapple trees. And I think we'll probably put a new Christmas tree out there. You know, we've got our town Christmas tree, but it's large. And it may be a mature tree looking towards the, who knows how long it'll last, I guess I'm trying to say. So kind of in the center of the property, we'll plant a new evergreen tree with the thought that when the current tree has seen its last Christmas, we'll be able to move those lights over to a new Christmas tree, and by that point, it'll be large enough to serve as a good new town Christmas tree. The gazebo has been designed by an architect, and the whole plan was designed by an architect out of Portland with a colleague who's a landscape architect. So we've tried to do this right from a design standpoint and get all the advantages and the ideas these people have. We've got contractors lined up that I have worked with personally, both to build a gazebo and do the stone wall, a stone mason. Jay Leland is the stone mason. Randy Dorr is the contractor. Randy and his team built the Main Lakes Resource Center in the village. Jay Leland has done a lot of beautiful stonework around here, including the chimney and fireplace of my house, and it's still standing and looking good. So I'm comfortable with those guys. Most of the construction on the gazebo itself will be made out of what I call the artificial wood, the plastic wood, so that which is certainly more expensive, but I think wood's gotten very expensive, but this is even more expensive. But I think long term it'll provide a structure that'll require less maintenance and maintain its beauty. I think we want to put electrical power in this gazebo so that it provides the opportunity for musical groups, entertainment, or whatever you might have to use that power. Obviously, it needs to be safety protected in some way so that it doesn't present a danger to, particularly to children. Probably put some lights in the ceiling so if there's an event there at night, those lights are available to downlight the gazebo. There is a well on the property because you all know there was a home on the property that the fire department took advantage of using this past March for some training, and the home is now gone, but there's still a well on the property if we can find it. That does provide the opportunity to have some water there. I don't know that you want water for public use, but we could build a small pump house, have water access in that pump house, and have it secured in a way that it could be used for in a supervised way by the city folks or whoever maintains the property. It may be good for, particularly when you plant trees and so forth, they have water available to maintain those trees and make sure they grow well. The timing on it is such that we'd like to get it built this summer, the gazebo and the stone wall, do the landscaping this fall, and have this park ready to go so that when maybe we have a dedication for the new street and the sidewalk and the pedestrian lighting and everything, that the park could just be part of that. And I've already talked to John and Elaine Galler, and they want to be part of the dedication. So we've got local music to help celebrate this whole thing when it's completed. So I think that's kind of the essentials of it. Does anybody have a question or want to know more about what our plans are, or do you have any thoughts or concerns or additional ideas to make it better?
Got a hand up there?
Yes, sir.
Now, there's like an open well towards the storage area. Is that on your property, do you know?
The open well.
Dilapidated well, kind of, up towards the storage area.
There's a little stone structure back there.
Is that?
Yeah, I think it is. That was, I guess, originally maybe the starters check for the golf course. We took a good look at it today with the contractor. Unfortunately, it's in really bad shape. I was hoping we could save that, but I don't know if you've taken a walk back in the woods, but the stone walls are falling apart and all the timber in it is bad.
I thought it was a well.
So I don't think, as much as I'd like to as a historical piece of the real hotel, be able to keep it, at least initial assessment is it may be too far gone. So we'll see. Yeah, but I think it is on the property. Yes?
How about septic system?
Septic system? There's no septic system. Well, there is a septic system, but we're not going to use it. We'll abandon it, and there's no plans for any kind of a restroom on that property. I think that's probably more than we want to bite off, Jack?
Yeah, but before you came in, we just got a quarterly report from the Bar Harbor Bank. We now have a unified trust fund as a town. There's about $1.2 million in that. And the income from that after expenses is distributed out to specific causes on a proportional basis. Do you think that with this village green going in and done, because there will be an upkeep?
Right, certainly cutting the grass.
Do you think that there's a possibility that citizens, whether they're Belgrade citizens or visitors, or might be interested in contributing to a specific fund for the upkeep on that?
Could certainly set it up and see if they would, certainly.
I don't know if the town would go along with that. The
Sure.
board would have to go along with that too.
Yeah,
But rather than expect the town to do it
to
all,
pay for it, sure.
I wonder if some people with interest in the town would be interested.
So that doesn't become an issue.
And that's how this fund got, a lot of this fund got started in the
Sure.
first place.
That's a good thought, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of maintenance cost, only because it's designed that there are no flower beds, there's nothing other than to cut it with a mower. And I think that Mow by Joe's doing it now, and I think it takes him about 22 minutes to cut that property, I mean, it's quick. And the gazebo itself and the stone wall shouldn't require any maintenance for years and years and years. So, but I still think it's a good thought to generate some funds to cover the maintenance. Yeah, Dennis?
Well, I'm not being a naysayer or anything. I'm just pointing out the fact that before this property before the town does any maintenance on it, obviously the town has to own it.
Right.
And the town doesn't own it, so any maintenance or obligations for that would be part of the group that owns it. Now, there may be plans, so there may be other.
No, and our thought certainly is in collaboration again with the Friends of Belgrade to gift this to the town. And I know it has to be gifted and received as a gift by the town through a vote, I'm sure, at the annual meeting. And hopefully we'll do that so that can be done by next March, yeah.
Might help with a vote.
It might help with the vote, right? Put that as part of it. Good thought.
Now,
Michael?
Yeah, I was gonna say the idea of some sort of maintenance plan in place, some sort of endowment idea in place might help with that, book, because it's one of the things that everybody complains about, or everybody asks about. What's it gonna cost us to maintain it? And we're at the second season still.
That's a good thought, because it probably covers the last piece of it. I mean, as I said, we've designed it and we're gonna build it in such a way there's minimal maintenance cost in the building itself and the gazebo and on the property, but it still has to be cut. And, you know, if we can have a fund to take care of that, figure out what that is and cover that, that would be a good idea.
We needed a lawnmower for that. Do you know anybody can that work out something for us?
Yeah, Melanie.
Lynn, I was just gonna say, and I mentioned it to these folks, my daughter is so excited that there's finally gonna be a gazebo.
Good, good.
Has wanted one forever.
Good.
So.
And unlike the drawing that you see in the plans there, where the thought now in the gazebo is have stairs all the way around all 8 sides, so it's open on all 8 sides, which makes it seem more inviting, more accessible. And also, if there's entertainment there, that entertainment can be directed any direction, and people can see in from any direction on the outside. They can see the entertainment. So that's different than the drawing. That was just thrown in there as a, you know, to represent the gazebo. But the new design that we're currently thinking about, as I say, is open on all 8 sides. There'll be stairs going down all 8 sides of that octagonal-shaped gazebo.
So this is not representative of it?
No, because that has railings around it. You know, we would not have those railings. That, by the way, that picture is as you probably know, is the gazebo in Gardner. And that architect. Same architect. He gave us those drawings, and once he saw what we were doing here and said we were free to use them, happy to use them. So we're scaled, that's 26 or 28 feet in diameter, which is appropriate for that size property, because that's probably a 3 or 4 acre piece of property, that park in Gardner. But if we put that one on this property, it's gonna be way too large. So we scaled it down to 20 feet and opened it up to make it seem a little more, as I say, accessible and a little, I think it'll look nicer. We're gonna drop the roof line down too. The pitch on that roof will be about half as much, so it won't be quite as steep as that roof is. That's, at least the architect's recommending that.
How high off the ground will the platform be?
It, you know, like 18 inches or something, very, you know, I think it's 2 or 3 steps. You know, they know the code, and they're gonna keep it within the code, so it's.
So the code does not require railing?
Does not require railing, right?
Question for Chris.
Yes, ma'am.
Will there be handicap accessibility?
Yes, there'll be a ramp. Yeah, we sure will be, yeah. Yeah. And we'll probably show it to the folks over at Travis Mill to make sure it works for them as far as width and so forth. I was just over there last week and we talked about it. They're in fact trying to help me get materials at a good cost. So Brandy over there has been really excited about it for her guest.
Chris, I got a question for you. About this. Yes. What's your feelings about putting stairs all the way around a place you might be performing?
Well, there's handicap access, so I can get on it with wheels.
No, but what's your feeling about having it open so people can get up on where you're playing?
Oh, I'm not worried about it. I mean,
I've seen this in the past where people go up on the stage where they're not supposed to be.
well, I can get them off very quickly.
But sometimes they come there and it might not be.
They might, well, no, not even that, but just not appropriate behavior. But
that was the question I have. I've seen some with stairs all the way around, some without it, and I thought I'd ask somebody that's entertaining people out there the question. Thank you.
Well, yeah, it's, I don't think we're gonna need to call the police. I'll call you.
So I guess my question's you have another question?
I was gonna say she could, rope it off behind her if that's what.
Sure, you can do that.
Kids are more of a concern for me. Kids running rampant during an outside concert and getting on stage and getting in a guitar. Yes, that's an issue. Well, I just say it on the microphone and, that's exactly all I can do.
Yes.
I just offer a comment. I think it's a great gift to the town, should the town accept it or not. I think it's a great gift.
That would be my comment as well. I think that it's excruciatingly generous of you and Phyllis to get this ball rolling, and I think that it's very nice of the Friends of Belgrade to work with you.
I had a question. There's lights in the gazebo. Are there any other lights,
pedestrian lights or anything? At this point, no.
Yeah. Should there be along the accessible path,
Right.
should it also have an offshoot that goes over to the West Road?
Well, there's no crossover plan for the West Road, so that we're just trying to stay within the safety.
Because I can see people like, you know,
Yeah, they cut
coming
over there.
from the Sunset.
There's also
Trail
a
and
ditch
what-
along there, a pretty
I was
good
just
ditch,
gonna
so.
say, there's a heck of a ditch there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We can talk to Mike and
The lights in the gazebo, they would
I
be
think I talked to him.
controlled by the performers, or they'd be?
I think we'd have to have a switch that would again be closed, that they could dim them. I'd see being able to dim them and you know, turn them on and dim them and so forth. And that would be a lock switch, so we don't want, I don't think the public accessing that.
Yeah. Did you want to say anything about the memorial ring? or
Well, we're not
still
sure what
planning?
that's gonna be yet. You know, we talked about up the top having a little stone wall and a memorial ring, and we're still in debate, so I don't wanna promise something that might not happen. Okay. But I do wanna get a affirmation or confirmation that electrical in the gazebo is a good idea, because obviously we have to trench it in, and I think we'd want at least four outlets in there, as well as the lights in the ceiling. Dennis?
It
I would
would be
think it
good,
would
I
be-
would think.
I'm sorry?
It would be good, I think, I know there's a well on the property,
There- we-
so it may be good to have that usable for watering and all that.
Right.
People carrying water for the flowers and stuff there.
We've had this discussion.
That was my second question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dennis is gonna water the plants when we put them in.
That's right.
About the Christmas tree and the lighting for the Christmas tree, when you're putting in wiring, is it wise to have like an underground outlet to one or the other?
We could
Christmas
certainly
trees?
put run a wire over there
Just for the
and bring it
future.
up on a stub or
Yeah.
something, and yeah, so because if we're gonna make that the tree,
Yeah.
otherwise, as opposed to running cord over like we do now, right? I think there's a cord from the
Where's the
power
power?
pole to the tree,
Well, there's a power switch for the tree right close by the tree.
but there's a cord that runs over to that power pole, maybe 30 feet into the further north, I think.
Yeah.
That's where the
So
power
rather than
comes
have
from.
it be
I
a
didn't think it was
temporary
that
kind of
far.
power for the
Yeah,
Christmas tree.
I thought about
Something to
that,
think
so
about,
we'll
yeah.
figure it out, yeah.
Good.
But the other question is the water, you know, as Dennis said, I think there's some advantages to that, but then again, that's a maintenance item, you know, someone's gonna have to shut that well down in the fall and drain it or whatever you have to do, and then start it up again in the spring, so I just wanna throw that out. It'd be nice to have it. I don't think you want the public to be able to turn it on and use the water.
No.
I suppose they'd be nice for dogs, but then again, if it's left on, the pump could get burned out, you know, so.
Well, plus you'd have to do the testing for.
Yeah,
for
drinking,
you know,
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right,
It'd be a
good point.
non-potable supply, but
Yeah.
I do think it'd be an advantage to keep the water, but that's.
Yeah.
But it'd be easy to lock the valve inside a pump house with a padlock on it, you know, available to the city personnel supervisors that could open it up and turn it on
Put
and
a
have
hole
water.
on it.
So I
Okay.
have a quick question. You just said the word dogs, which has got me going right away in a good way. But if there's gonna be dogs allowed on the property, you're gonna have a station for waste.
You know, what's the policy for the
Carry
city
in,
in
carry
terms of
out.
dogs?
Carry in, carry out, the same as Lake Shore Drive. And the same as down at the Center for All Seasons, people are expected to pick up the dog drive.
Okay, so just
And then
signage.
carry it out.
Okay,
If you put something there, everything in the world is gonna go into it.
I got you.
And it's gonna be running over and all
Okay.
that. We pulled the one down at the Lake Shore Drive because, or the beach down there,
Right,
because of that reason.
Right.
So we don't have a place for people.
I would think at some point the city will put their sign with the rules of a park up
Right.
by the parking lot, I would think, just like it is a peninsula park, you know.
Okay.
So that would probably be in the rule, I think. Yeah, Michael?
Just want to point out, the dogs are not permitted at the Center for All Seasons, and perhaps.
Service dogs.
Huh?
Service dogs.
Service dogs are usually don't have a problem.
They
And
don't
I
poop?
think we should do the same, same thing in this park.
How about if we build a park and you set the rules for
One
the
of the
park?
corrections, we are not a city.
A town, I'm sorry.
God.
Right, a municipal, it says right there. Municipality, okay.
Jack, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wonder, we mentioned well pump and tree and lights and so forth. Is there a meter there now, or there will be a meter, I'm sure?
You know, we took the power off when the house went away. We pulled the power back to the pole on West Road. So I've got a request in now to bring the power back. They're gonna have to set up a temporary meter for the construction. Then we'll put it underground to the gazebo. Some point, I'm sure there's gotta be, I don't know how it works, but I'm gonna meet on July, I think 11th with CMP out there to determine where the pole goes and so forth.
Or is it just a detail, but there'll be a bill to go with that too, every month.
I think it's I think the minimum power is $15 a month.
Yeah.
That's what we're paying on the
a
dams.
lot of power in the gazebo, please.
Well, there'll be, when the big bands are, there'll be lots of power, otherwise it won't be used.
Yeah, that's what I mean, just
right.
outlets.
Right,
Great.
yes, sir.
For the well, is the well a deep well? Could you put a manual hand pump there instead of a powered well or a powered pump?
You know, right now, I think there's a well with probably a submersible pump in it that was for the house. So I don't even know where the well head is right now, we haven't even found it, so we gotta figure out the best way to do
I
that.
know it's all the power.
Yeah, we could though, although it'd be hard to water trees with a hand pump.
Depends on how deep it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move on to the expenditure of the town's utility capital reserve.
Right, as you know, we have these drop-down gates that we're gonna be putting in the municipal office. When we were estimating the cost for those, it was an estimate. One thing that happened was the tariff on steel went up, so the price of the gates went up. So, in any case, the bottom line is that it looks like the current estimate is $16,204 versus the original $15,000, so we're asking, and then we can take the additional money from the town facility.
All right? Want to hear a motion?
Yes, motion second.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now, geez, what are they doing with this? Transfer station?
Yep.
Yes, I don't know how this has been handled in the past, other than to say, on occasions when Christmas has fallen on a Wednesday, we moved the trash day to the following day. This year, July 4th falls on a Wednesday. This transfer, we don't have it in the policy, so the transfer station would like to close on Wednesday, open up on Thursday, which is, we're open for like 5 hours, I think, 12 to 5. They would open up for extra hours in the morning on Thursday. And we have 2 weeks to advertise that if you approve that.
Wouldn't it be more beneficial, wouldn't it be more beneficial for them to be open until 7 o'clock like they are on?
Well, we can go whatever way we want.
Because it doesn't make any sense if folks use it on Wednesday nights, get there when they get out of work, to have it closed, switch it to Thursday, and then have it closed before a lot of folks are out of work. So I mean.
So what I understand you saying is instead of opening up in the early morning hours on Thursday, move it to 12 to 7 or something like that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Regular Wednesday hours.
Yeah.
Right, Wednesday hours on Thursday.
Okay.
Make sure it's advertised. We gotta get the word.
Well, we'll get the word out on the sign, we'll post it in Facebook and all of that. We'll try to get the word out this week. We'll put a notice up on inside the building here on Cape Haven as well.
Let's do a motion on this and stuff, so if it ever comes back, we'll take a rap for it.
I make a motion that we close the transfer station on July 4th, 2018, and extend the hours of the transfer station on July 5th, 2018 to reflect the hours of Thursday, right, would be 11 a.m. till 7 p.m.
Oh, you have a second on that? It's moved and seconded. Any more discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
We'll also have a flyer at the transfer station over the next couple of weeks.
Can't they put it on their sign? But
Yeah, we will.
I don't spend a lot of money paper on that.
Well, no, I'm talking about signs.
Yeah.
Because then we're just gonna try to decide.
Thanks,
Thank you, you're all doing a great job. I'm gonna recommend a raise for all of you.
Good.
Will it come out of your tax?
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get right back in here, we wanna talk to you.
Thank you.
All right. I think now the warrant, Alan.
We have an additional warrant, just a small one.
Okay. Go ahead. You wanna read it?
Let's see, warrant number 72. The total warrant is $54,461.27.
Here, the move, I have a second? I guess it has been seconded. You seconded, you read it.
I don't have enough copy of that. Are there copies of that one, or do we just go with it?
You should have copies in your file.
All I have is oh no, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm all set. Forget it.
Mike, you got something?
I got a question. My wife is on this as a, she was election election clerk. Do I have a man of conflict to come and vote on this?
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Not one year.
Okay, I've got a question.
We don't
All
think
right,
she's
Mike,
gonna.
just got a couple other questions?
Central Maine disposal, this is on frequently. Are they charging us every time they empty a can, or is that a monthly fee, or what?
We rent from them.
What is the check number?
I'm sorry, 17314. Two.
Those are for the
Porta potties.
porta potties.
Oh, yeah, these are the monthly fees for the porta
They say they don't have any.
For a minute, I was gonna
I was
say,
thinking like dumpsters.
yeah, that's what I was, immediately went to the
Those are trash
trash.
cans, yeah. Okay,
I mean,
one other.
Yeah.
You get, on page 317, 324, boat anchor. What are we buying boat anchors?
I was talking about that as well.
my guess is probably for Center Hall
It
season.
is
Yeah, that would be my
seasons,
guess.
I guess it's new regulations. At Santa for All Seasons, I think there's new regulations this year, and Gary had to put the rope up or something with the boat anchors.
This is the buoys. If you remember last year, we put buoys up to keep the boats away from, and I think they require anchors on this year. Was that it?
Okay. It's not really a boat anchor, but
No, but it's an anchor.
mooring anchor.
Whatever.
Something like that, yeah.
So it's like that little swimming area.
Yeah.
Another one?
Yep, page 4, inland fisheries and wildlife. The answer may be here, but there's a hole right in the middle of the item, I can't really see what it is, but why are we giving them $29,000?
The fishing licenses.
It is, it's the state fees that we collect, and we send to the inland
I
fisheries.
thought it might be.
Anyone else?
I think I'm done.
I had a question,
Yep, go ahead.
curious question. On the first page, B&B embroidery, it says shirts and sweatshirts, but then underneath it, it says solid waste.
Well, that's, I believe, clothing for the transfer station staff.
They have the name.
Thank you. Okay, all right.
Okay.
I'm
Anybody else?
thinking,
Mike,
it's like
something else?
sweatshirts for solid waste, I'm
We do
sorry.
have two more on page 6. 17,347. Treasurer State of Maine, $47.76. So what are we giving them money for fuel? It says fuel for.
One of the fire trucks got fuel at the state.
Correct.
Okay, and the other question I've got is a couple down. What is a water quality surcharge?
We do, when we do the permits,
Plumbing.
the plumbing permits, $15 is a water quality surcharge.
Something new.
Well, I think it's some set shellfish thing.
Shellfish?
Yeah, I think so. That is required to every plumbing. I have to ask Gary Waters.
Thank you, State of Maine. Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else got any questions?
Yeah, I just had one on the first page, the city of Augusta fee, what is HHW day fee, what is that?
We had household hazardous waste day, was at the city of Augusta.
City of Augusta hosted
Yeah.
hazardous waste pickup,
Oh,
and that's the fees that we pay.
so, I mean, it's not, do we know if anybody actually dropped off hazardous waste, or?
I believe there were.
It says insurance on it. It says 8 units on it.
Yeah, they drop off, they pay based on the,
Oh.
not dropped off.
All right, great. My only other question was the final bill for the transfer station phone number from Consolidated Communications. Is that because we've switched the transfer station phone number to Spectrum?
Yeah.
Or
You want to explain it?
we're hoping to?
We lost the phone number when they disconnected Spectrum, it sent it back to Fairpoint and Consolidated.
No.
And we had to actually pay to call it our number.
Yeah,
So we paid for 2 months to call our number, now it's moved back to Spectrum, so we don't have to pay this.
We had the phone number in all of our
yeah,
books.
yeah,
There's a long story.
sure, yeah. I've heard part of that,
Yeah.
It's a pain.
yeah, yeah. But we have service from
We
Spectrum?
have service at the transfer station, and we have service here, in terms of our 100 meg speed, both of those things.
Oh, good.
The only thing we have is, God is satisfactory.
Yeah.
Anybody else? None?
Yeah.
On page 2, I noticed we've got credit card interest. Are we not paying the card in full every month so that we don't pay interest?
We have 3 weeks in between warrants occasionally, and when we have the 3 weeks in between warrants, then we don't have it paid on time, so then we pay the interest. But there are also occasions where somebody uses their credit card, and then there's a credit. So my system cannot actually give a credit to a specific department. So if I know that a credit is due, then we don't pay it, so that we can get the credit the following month. So I've asked in the actual last department head meeting that I reminded them one more time that when I try to use credit cards.
We're actually trying to move away from department heads using credit cards. I know that the fire department has to, at times, we have various credit, what do they call it?
Like credit accounts.
Accounts.
Because I know what we've done in the past, it was, if we fell into this and we had too many weeks between warrants, what used to happen is the mini warrant would be set up, there'd be notification sent out to the select board, and as long as 3 people stopped by and signed it, then that could go out. And then it was just reflected on the next meeting.
Saved us money, whatever we do.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, is, even if it's,
It depends on how much it is, but I mean, you guys are paying the gas fee, I did.
Yeah, I get it.
So it's,
Town.
no, it's fine.
well, and I just, it was just one of those.
No, I know,
things
I remember us
that
doing
we've
that.
done, we have a set spot, I think, we haven't talked about it, it used to be in the treasurer's office. We would stop in and see if there was anything extra that needed to be signed, and as long as we had something with, we could just sign it. Oops, I died. Let me see. Okay, no, just a second.
This is also. We don't have to answer you. No more questions this time.
Yeah?
We haven't even voted yet. We did? No, we did.
We all signed.
Yeah, that's fine.
I call it.
That was it?
All right, I guess I'd entertain a vote now. Been moved and seconded, and all in favor of the warrant? We got 4 and 1 out. You got the other next warrant?
This warrant is a small warrant, it's for we're trying to get the postage all set up for the tax, and
things are coming out again.
yeah, we'll,
Alright, so warrant number 75 and the warrant total of $1,700.
if someone has a question.
Have a second?
Oh, yes.
Been moved and seconded? Any discussion on it?
Yeah, what is it?
Most
Tax
postage for
bill
tax bills.
postage.
I think we ought to vote this down, what do you think?
We haven't voted anything, we haven't voted anything now.
No, I think we ought to on that. We won't get a tax bill.
It's not like a market.
All right, I guess I didn't entertain a vote. All in favor? 5. Thank you. Next thing is town manager.
Okay, I'll try to get through this fairly quickly.
Will it be?
Well, I got some news. I won't say it's good or bad, but to me it's bad. But, here's the issue. I got notified today that the Maine Department of Transportation, as they were blasting and stuff, they were testing wells out there, work on Route 8 and 11. 14 wells came back above the 250 milligrams per liter required for salt. There's 14 wells that are contaminated, in other words. 6 of those folks that have those wells have asked for remediation. There's a letter signed by the then town manager back in 2011, approved by the board, that essentially said that we would participate cooperatively with DOT on salt contamination in wells that were apparently contaminated by the salt, the 2 salt piles up there, theirs and ours, at a rate of 50/50. So then my question was, well, which of those, were those houses all within the same aquifer? The geologist for DOT said he believes so. There are a couple houses way up north on Route 8 and 11 that I would question. I'm not a geologist. But nonetheless, the majority of those would be in the area that we had agreed to participate.
I thought about that after you told me about that. I thought that agreement was made for the ones that they had contended they knew of. I think there were 6 of them. That didn't say we keep doing it forever.
It says, the Department of Town agreed to split costs to resolve claims. Let me read the letter. The Maine Department of Transportation of the Town of Belgrade agreed to cooperatively work together to resolve well claims in and around facilities located on Cemetery Road. Both entities have stored winter and sand outside, and there have been several well claims. The department will take a lead with either the department or the town when the department or town is notified by property owner of a well problem by testing the well, developing alternative solutions. The department will keep the town informed and meet with the town to arrive at a solution together. The department currently has well drilling firms under contract or asked to vote on solutions, the solution chosen. The firm, the locals will receive the work. The department and the town agreed to split costs equally to resolve claims. However, the department does not expect reimbursement for staff time or routine testing. And then they just referenced the 2 properties that had at that time done above the acceptable level. And then the fact that we agreed to the
Is one of those back on that list again?
No, these are the Farrington and the Leak properties. Properties on Pinkham Cove. So, what they did tell me though, which is kind of good news, maybe not, is that they don't know whether or not the DOT will recommend wells being drilled, new wells being drilled. They plan on providing water, bottled water or whatever it is, to those houses that are impacted right now. I believe that they have a choice to do that to remediate stuff. So we would split the cost of the water right now.
That's a temporary fix.
It may be a permanent fix according to the guy I talked to. I said, geez, I don't know. I mean, why would you do that long term? He said, water's cheap. I'm gonna have more conversations.
Well, I just think you ought to go back to the minutes of that meeting.
I got them right
I think
there.
they're right here, that's what I wanted to look at, because,
They're right there in its height.
wow,
Do you remember this?
I do remember this.
And I thought it was 6 wells.
And then there were some that didn't want, one was, there was a property that they were trying to sell and they were not.
And they redid the well on that property, and the state did it, and it was just a big mess.
Are these all drill wells, all these contaminated?
Well, I don't know that specific question. My assumption is yes, but I'm not certain. But only 6 of them have asked. Some of these wells are slightly above, like 280 versus 250. So the test itself could be, in question, 320.
But you're gonna get more information.
Oh, I'm gonna provide, believe me, I'm gonna work on all this. I've got the map that highlights it's a small map, that highlights where the wells are relative to Route 811.
Well, and that's the thing that I'm not saying that we don't have, but it clearly says a discussion ensued about the cost of the remediation of the wells in Pinkham's Cove. The manager stated the actual cost is not yet known. There's approximately $28,802 in the community capital reserve account. I mean, MDOT would like the municipality to split the cost 50-50 on the remediation of the wells. Dan Newman made a motion to authorize an amount up to $6,000 to be released to pay for the town's share of the remediation of the wells located in Pinkham's Cove. At the time, we were only discussing those wells.
That's right, but the letter is.
The letter is vague, and it doesn't say, it doesn't say that,
But the minutes.
it doesn't say that there's a 50-50 agreement moving forward. So if the town of Belgrade were to choose to read this in such a way that says there's a 50-50 split, and Maine DOT says, no, that's the agreement we made on just those, and now the split is gonna be 80 on the town and 20 on DOT.
No, it's
This says 50-50, but we're reading it saying, okay, so this looks like, and we clearly referenced in here that there are 2 properties that have the wells above the accessible, right, according to this. Now, if we read this, that the agreement moves forward and that it's a 50-50 split, Maine DOT does not have to read it the same.
No, they're gonna interpret the way,
They should
both
go
sides
to the
will.
minutes of what we said.
And the minutes simply say to authorize an amount up to $6,000 to be released to pay for the town's share. So we were looking at $12,000 to take care of 2 wells at that time.
Let's see if we can get some more information.
I'll get more information, but the question I had was, this letter was signed. You can read it, obviously, you can read it to your best benefit, that's what it is. But it does say that the department, the town of Belgrade and the Department of Finance agreed to cooperatively work together to resolve well claims in and around facilities located on Cemetery Road, Route 135. I'm not trying to spend Belgrade's money on it. It looks like it's because we both stored winter salt and sand up there.
And I think at the time, prior to that going on, was DOT was not looking, we had actually had to try to work out a 50-50 agreement because we couldn't prove.
Yeah, that was the whole point. I remember part of that discussion because it started right the year that I was ready to leave. And I remember some of that discussion. And
Burgess's property, both Burgess's
they're right on there?
They did 2 different systems to see if they'd work, and I don't know if they worked or not.
No, those are the properties that have been identified above,
They're still on?
Yeah, 50, all the way 55, A all the way up to E, I think, or G, and then 58, which is right down on the corner down there. They're all part of this list of wells.
The house across the road?
Is that
No,
only,
on the corner.
is that only one test?
These are all one well test. yes.
One well test. So before any
Well, I'm sure there's
remediation
gonna be
takes
a lot
place,
more.
there's gonna be another
They will.
test and there'll be a
It's
little bit more research done
Right, the Burgesses.
so that we can make a reasonable decision about.
Burgesses, well, they immediately sent me all of this stuff, right? They said, well, it wasn't done on your watch, but it's your watch now, is what they essentially said.
Right.
But,
And what's the date on those?
these tests,
Yeah,
they sent them to me in an email today. I don't have a test, date, well, wait a minute. Oh, 5/22/18, 6/12/18, 6/19/18. So it was in the last week and a half or
Okay.
so, 2
all
weeks,
right, thank you.
3 weeks.
Jack, have you got something?
Yeah, just a question, I just wondered if these contaminated wells were within the reasonable range of where the old salt pile was, or whether they were up and down the road where they did blasting.
Well, the wells, if you look at the map, and we can talk about this later, but if you look at the map, the wells, a lot of them, I think 8 of them or 7 of them, are start from this corner, go around Gene Burgess's property all the way up the hill. And then there's a 1 or 2 more on this side and a couple on that side. Then there's one way up above that I question whether it's part of this.
Right.
But these were tested before they blasted. I asked that question. So they were tested before they blasted.
Well, the 6/12, that was.
Well, I don't know if it was, I
That was
didn't,
some before blasting.
well, I may have misunderstood.
Sorry.
Yes, I may have misunderstood your question because I don't know when these tests were taken. He said that we had blasted, right, that they had blasted and they had taken samples, so I don't know if that was before or after, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Right.
Okay, because that's why I was like, well, no, they blasted before 6/12.
But the town itself doesn't apply any salt in those areas, do they?
No, that's all state road, but we do have the big salt pile out there that,
I
you know, this
know.
was.
Where you store it.
I understand.
We store it.
But I told you about all the salt.
That was
going out
also
the
part
road.
of Mr. Sand's salt shed, was that we would get our salt undercover.
We did.
And you did, this will all gradually flow out of the aquifer 50 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After we're gone.
Which was my
Thank
whole
you so
thing,
much.
potable water here.
Anyway,
So that's that issue.
Okay,
Okay, we did have set up an active shooter event training that is for this coming Thursday night. Unfortunately, they need 30 people to sign up. We had 5. I was very interested in going to that. Nonetheless, that's canceled.
Well,
The,
if we can reschedule it tomorrow, I'm out of town for training.
originally,
I said today, I'd like to do it, but I'm gonna be in Boston.
there's an MMA training session set up for July 10th at the Cross Insurance Building in Bangor, sponsored by MMA, on legal update on recreational use of marijuana. So if someone wants to go to that, I was thinking about attending because this is a much more detailed briefing. So if someone's interested.
what's the date on it?
July 10th. I think I sent this notice out to you by email.
I think you did too. It has a familiar sound.
Okay, I'm going to now kind of admit to an error I made. I feel badly about it. Maine Technology Group and I were working last year with our folks and, at the cost of transitioning from what we have now to a new software and all that. At the time, we knew what their contract fees were and all that, and we were looking at costs for the software, and we were informed that, well, are you a nonprofit? And I said, well, yeah, we're a nonprofit. So we put the budget together based on that. Well, yeah, we're a nonprofit, but we were thinking differently, and certainly Microsoft thinks differently. So we did not put the money in necessary to cover the software costs. That's about, I think for this year, it's about $1,800. We have, I believe, we can cover it through our administrator, because it's in that one big account. And I don't think we're gonna have to ask for more money. In fact, I'm pretty sure we don't. But I wanted to let you know that that was an error I made, and I shouldn't have made the error, and apologize. Okay?
That would reflect.
Well, this certainly should.
Yes. So noted.
That's right.
Okay, the other couple of other issues. Commercial haulers, I'm calling the commercial haulers into a meeting on June 25th. I want to talk to them about the increased number of incidents and complaints of trash on the road. And I'm going to explain to them that future incidents, especially, if, you know, there's one person that essentially has had 2 or 3 complaints, so probably 4, nothing was taken. The ordinance says if there's a first incident, it's $50 to $100. After that, the second offense is $250, and then it can go up to $500 or more per violation, or you can withdraw the license. Well, I just wanted to let them know that I'm serious about stopping that, and that they should have the roads covered pursuant to our ordinance. And so,
I must have missed.
but in any case, I just want to let you know that if you hear something from them, this is what's going on. I've got lots of complaints. I picked up trash bags myself, and we've gone through them, identified who the person was, and then asked who hauled their garbage. So we pretty much have a pretty good idea. There's another potential enforcement action that we may be taking on 326 Sandy Cove Road. That's a place that was given a permit to do one thing, they've done something else, and I'm working with Gary on that. He went down, I didn't get a chance to talk to him today, but they built another dwelling essentially on the property when they were looking at a playhouse and a laundry. So anyhow, that's something that we're taking care of. Brightside Marina, as you know, is going before an appeal process, essentially on an interpretation issue. They believe, Brightside believes that the planning board interpreted the shoreline zoning ordinance in error. So they're taking it to the planning board for a de novo review, which is completely looking at the permit request. Then, if that fails, they also have potential of requesting a variance. Nonetheless, they're operating without a license. So I've sent that information to the lawyer. The lawyer sent them a letter. That did not go well, but nonetheless, that's in process. I'll keep you informed.
They're operating without a permit.
Without a permit or license.
Yeah, or license.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, he will claim now that they in fact are doing it for free, but as I understand, that's not an issue.
I won't get into that.
I won't get into
It's in legal terms, it's in legal hands now.
It's in legal hands. I hope you all noticed that 341 Manchester Road looks better.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, insurance. We talked last budget period about going out for an RFP for comprehensive insurance. Well, looking into that for the last month, I think, or so, it's more complicated than we thought. So we may not be able to do a comprehensive insurance review this year, but we're certainly getting the information together that will allow us. We're talking to Kais. Kais is coming into Kais Insurance Agency. He's coming in to talk to us about this. One of the issues is if we try to develop a comprehensive RFP, we'll need an agent of some sort to help us do that.
Why don't you talk to Steve?
We have. Steve,
He can steer the right direction.
he has, he's been in conversation and contact with, and there's certain things he knows, certain things he doesn't, but is the way we've set up our insurance packages over time. Some of them require 60 days notice, and before the termination of the package, you can't just cut into the middle, based on the agreements that we signed. And there's other issues going on. We're trying to get it done, we'll try to do as best we can, but we may not be able to put an umbrella policy together without a lot of changes and finagling, so more will come on that. Did I say what I needed to say? Okay, I'm going to be out of the office next week. Not next week, I'll be here next week through Friday. I'll be taking Friday off, and then I'll be out the following week. We're going to be doing our tax commitment calculations next week. Obviously, we give you, the tax assessor will give you 2 or 3 scenarios. I'll write out a recommendation, working with Melanie on that, and then she will bring it. She'll be acting in my stead when I'm gone on July 3rd, which is the next week.
You're gonna make it. It's the day before a holiday.
The Center for All Seasons, we met tonight with the group. We think we have a plan on the external maintenance of that facility. I will be writing that plan up and developing costs working with Gary Foss. And we're going to be presenting it to the Recreation Committee, and then we'll be bringing it to you for approval. And this is relevant to the Article 44, which said essentially it may cost more, but do a long-term kind of maintenance plan that lowers the overall cost. And I just want to do. Oh, I've been going to meetings for the last couple of weeks at the Center for All Seasons on Tuesday morning. They have an elderly group that gets together for coffee. It's been
It's not an elderly group, it's just some people who want to have coffee.
Aged groups. Wow, a group that's older than mine.
I have gone, and it's not always old people.
It's not always old people, but it's a group that, you know, I didn't realize, so I've gone down and just talked to them about issues and see if they have questions. I thought it was a good group. And I've been looking, as you know, into this whole thing about aging in place. How do we take care of our elderly? Gary Mullers is interested in this topic too, and he sent me an article on what's called natural occurring retirement communities, NORCs, not NARCs, NORCs. So the issue is, the reason I'm bringing this up is I'm hoping to be able to get a group together that will help define those things that we need, perhaps to assist our elderly, and maybe put a grant together that we can fully explore this concept of NORC, and how we might be able to help our elderly out. Belgrade certainly is a naturally occurring retirement community. As people grow up and move out, the younger people do, and people will move in and age here in place. So there's a lot of work to be done on that. I'm looking for a grant, and ultimately maybe we can do a public-private partnership on a progressive care facility. I don't know, but it's something that I think this area needs, maybe not just Belgrade. I'm going to a meeting tomorrow evening with Neighbors Driving Neighbors. I'm on that board, so tomorrow evening I'm going to be raising this as a potential item of interest for these Mount Vernon folks that have set that program up. Transportation is one of the needs. I won't name names, but 2 people recently passed away, and they weren't found for a few days. One of the things is check-ins. One of the needs. How do we provide that check-in capability on our elderly who are living alone? And you know, you want to check in to make sure that something is happening. So that's just another kind of thing. So I thought you'd be kind of interested in that update. And with that, I'm not going to go into it, delve into it a lot. I'm working with Katie and Carl to kind of look at what grants granting opportunities there are that could drive this issue and all that. At some point in time, we'll look at setting up an ad hoc committee to look into this whole thing. But I think it's something that's important for Belgrade, and I will move it then before I get too old.
Can I add one? We'll try to have age in place. But my daughter works for a large healthcare system in Massachusetts, and they have from a nursing standpoint, they have a whole system set up for people aging in place so that they can get much of their care right in their homes.
That's exactly.
And it's done with, a lot of telemedicine, but, frequent nurse visits and things like that. So there are systems out there that have already been established and running for quite some time.
Yes, and the AARP has a whole program going for, it's called Aging, I forget the name of it. I've got the whole book, it's 130 pages. But it's about aging in Maine, and they're really pushing this whole concept. I just think that as we get older, we forget, we younger people forget about the older folks who may be living alone, may not be contacted every day, and all of that. They need help, just transportation-wise, getting food. And they're still able to live at home, sure. Enough said.
I don't want to aging in place as we speak.
That's why I'm saying.
You have anything else?
We're all aging in place someplace.
Okay, we'll go to other. Anybody from the group got anything they want? Yeah. Melanie?
Can I just ask on these books, I use my little pocket sometimes to tuck stuff in that I want to reference at other meetings. Is it possible that we each just get our name on a book and it becomes our book for the foreseeable future? Because then I'm always afraid of it's hanging on my car.
That's good, and we're transitioning between Secretary of the Board. Anthony is working with Cheryl, and we'll gradually transfer to Cheryl to pick up that. Anthony,
Thank you.
The magic marker, okay.
That's right, I'm happy to stick a little sticker in there.
All right, and if there's nothing else, we are gonna have to take a 5-minute recess and then we're gonna go into executive session. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.